if they raised Ngannou's hand and he won, I don't think there'd be a lot of people who would be complaining. I think this is one of those situations where a lot of people can say.
If you looked at Twitter, everyone said robbery. I thought it was a robbery.
I do too. I
thought it was a robbery.
I think Ngannou, and a lot of times people think because of a knockdown that means you won said fight. Because I think even when the first fight was a split decision between Fury and Wilder when they were fighting back then, I still said Fury. In my opinion, I felt like Fury still won the fight despite the knockdowns at the end. But in this situation, watching it from a guy who isn't a boxer for all intents and purposes, to go in there toe-to-toe with the world champion, per se, the #1 boxer in the game, and to fight the way that he fought, to where Fury damn near had to change his entire dynamic and plan in the midst of the ring. And watching the fight, you saw Ngannou was actually winning. I felt as if it was a robbery as well.
And then you look at the aftermath.
Right.
The faces. Fury had this big black eye.
Fucked up.
Ngannou
looked the same. And now, going back to everything with UFC, this just further, increases UFC stock. I think Ngannou's performance reversed everything that the Paul brothers had done to all those, retired UFC fighters. I think now the stock has since gone back up for UFC, and Dana White probably looking a little bit stupid. I think it's like a 50-50 because he was talking kind of down on Ngannou just because of the contract disputes. They could have worked something out.
Ngannou has done something that's great. He's liberated fighters.
Right.
Because like I said, UFC is the most uncancelable thing. I saw a UFC fighter posted their paycheck after taxes, flights, because they make them book their own flights and stuff to the fight. After medical clearance, hospital bills, he walked away with like $17,000.
Yeah.
No one gives a fuck. They're like, yeah, make them fight. Like that, UFC pays people 17 grand to get fucked up, to get brain damage. Nobody bats an eyelash.
It's like the Coliseum is blood sport.
Yeah.
It's blood sport. So essentially you have these gladiators, these warriors who's going out there and you're fighting to make a living. And the people are they're bloodthirsty, so they're just cheering it on.
Yeah.
I couldn't care less if this dude couldn't eat. I remember there was a video of, I forget the fighter's name. I don't know where in Africa that he had came from, but then The Rock, he saw it because he said he had like $7 in his pocket. The Rock's whole story is having $7 in his pocket. So with that being the case, he went and I think he got the dude a house, all this other stuff. I forget his name, but people were like, whoa, wait a minute, they got to pay this dude more. But that's literally the story. When you're coming up in the fight game, it's one of those things where you got to be passionate about it or you got to be really good. If you're just somebody who's mundane, it's very difficult. You're not going to be able to make a living.
Yeah. So Dana White, with Francis Ngannou, he's liberated some fighters because he was like, you know what? Nah, I'm not going to be your little clown anymore. I'm going to go do my own thing. Gets this fight with Fury, wins. One of the now he's a household name in boxing, in MMA. Like, dude is a beast. People love him, and I love Francis Ngannou. I would love to have someone like that on the podcast. I think he embodies everything we talk about. Do you know his backstory?
No.
It's fucking incredible, bro.
From Cameroon.
It's Cameroon. He was working in the sand mines as a child. Working in the sand mines, and he was like, you know what? This is not a life for me. Right. So dude makes the journey, treacherous journey, to go from Cameroon and try and get into Europe. Right. And the way he does it, I guess Cameroon, all the countries in between, he like walked or hitchhiked or whatever, found a way to go up through there. So he's cutting through all like the jungles of Africa to get here to the border. And then from the border, he has a little like boat rafting he tried to take into Europe, or was it Turkey? Try to get something into. Are we good? Yeah. So yeah. So he tries to take this thing into Turkey. He gets caught. They ship him back to Africa.
Yeah, you got to go back. Cameroon tries again. Okay.
And he's doing this, and like, keep in mind, it's not a short trip. It's like a 2-week trip. Like
unyielding pursuit to try to find a way out.
So he was literally there in the sand mines, and I could be wrong about some of these details, but in the sand mines, fucking traverses through the jungles of Africa to get to the border, crosses over, gets sent back, tries to cross over again, gets sent back, tries to cross over again. Eventually, he makes it over to I don't know what Africa. I'm not a geography guy, but like Africa, I think it's Turkey or something. And then from Turkey, makes it into Paris. And at this point, he's already like 34, 35 years old.
So he was in his 30s doing this?
Yes, bro.
Really? Interesting.
I don't know if he was in his 30s.
Maybe like late teen, 20s, something of that nature.
31 or something.
All right.
And he's like, fuck it, I'm going to figure out what I can do. He couldn't find any work. He's like, I'm going to become a boxer. Starts boxing, ends up doing MMA, joins the UFC somehow, becomes the fucking heavyweight champion, bounces out of that, becomes a I want to say boxing heavyweight champion, but you know what I mean. Like,
yeah. UFC
so the dude
heavyweight
is
champion.
literally has like an indomitable spirit, like unbreakable. People are complaining about fucking, I don't want to post every day. This dude fucking worked in a sand mine, went through the jungles of Africa, took a raft from fucking Africa to the Middle East to then end up in Europe to then train every single, because that's not enough for him. He could have been there and like, I'm gonna get a job here, much better life than being in a sand mine. No, fuck that. I'm gonna train every single day, become the UFC heavyweight champion of the world, turn this down, and then fight the biggest heavyweight boxer in the world. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild, and
it's amazing,
even,
bro.
like even people will probably get into like the details or whatever the case, but I think it's the perseverance that matters in the story, because here's somebody who could have quit.
Yep.
Because of course, being in the United States, it's different for us, because if you're out there, you notice everybody's doing everything they can to get here or get to like a first world country, so they have an opportunity. You could be born here and you don't have that level of hunger, you don't have that level of desire. Because imagine like you're trying to see if you could get somewhere, you fail twice. It's like, all right, well, off to a different venture. For him, he said, no, fuck that. I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep trying. And the work that it takes to get to this point, because like you said, he could have made it to Europe and said, all right, cool. I'm going to just go see if I can become like an accountant or something like that. You make a good, honest living, but you're not in a situation to where it's like, it's you do or die kind of situation. Because in the fight game, hey, go out there, lose 4 fights, then what?
Yeah.
You know, then what? Like there's a ton of people who in the fight game been training for years. They make it to whether you get an appearance on UFC. Maybe you don't even get that far. You could be on a smaller promotion trying to go and fight. You don't break through. And here you are just, you know, whatever your paycheck is for the fight, that's enough to sustain things for whether it be a month, 2 months, 3 months. Because remember back in the day when Tyson was at his peak, he was fighting like fucking, what, it was like 86? He fought like maybe 10 fights in the year, like you're fighting every month. There was a couple of periods in which he fought like twice in 1 month. A lot of guys, when you're coming up, you have to fight a shit ton of times, because if you're getting paid per fight, I got to take as much fights as possible.
Exactly.
So in this blood sport, really, you're in a spot where it's like, oh, you got to fight to live. You got to fight to eat. Because some of these people be homeless, living out of their cars. Man, you can always admire it. So I would hope with this deal for Dana White, the UFC, with Bud Light, they could pay a lot of the fighters. You know,
they're not paying.
But they're not going to.
People,
they're not going to.
Like, and here's the thing: like, why are you fighting? Go do something else. You don't got to do this if you don't want the money.
You always good.
Business is business, bro. Like, you can make it big in the UFC. One thing that the UFC does really, really well is they promote the fuck out of you.
Yeah.
Like, you might not get paid in money, but you get paid in attention. And that attention. Like Francis Ngannou, one thing UFC did do for him, they might have not given him a bunch of money, but they promoted the fuck out of him. He became a star because of that. And that's a big marketing engine behind
like even Israel Adesanya, same thing to with the whole style bender stuff. You have an opportunity to brand yourself, and I think we talk about it all the time. Personal brand is the strongest right now across the board and everything. So when you are given that platform, you've got to be able to get yourself over. Like what's his? I forget his first name, but Holland, Kevin Holland, is it?
Kevin Holland.
Yeah, that dude talking in the midst of fight. His sound bites and mic'd up stuff from it. It's got to be one of the most viral fighters, because it's like, yo, I want to see this guy's fight. Maybe not even for what happens at the end result, but what happens during the fight.
100%.
Somebody like Conor McGregor, one of the most recognizable faces across the entire planet, based off of the brand that he was able to build off of the UFC. So a lot of people don't recognize how to capitalize on it. When you've got those cameras going, you've got to be able to take advantage.
You got to make the most of the platform.
Yes, Charles Sonnen. Oh my God, this dude might be one of the top 5 trash talkers of all time. He's a real life Johnny Cage. This dude was able to market himself, recognizing, hey, these cameras are on, these mics are rolling. I'm gonna give people something to talk about.